Peace is not a destination, it's the path. Often that path is shorter than we think. It's just that we tend to take the long way around. Stoicism doesn't teach us to search for tranquility in some distant place. It teaches us to pause, to be still, and to turn inward. It doesn't ask us to control the world, but rather emphasizes one simple truth: control yourself. Peace doesn't come from adding more to our lives, but from removing expectations, overreactions, and attachments to things beyond our control. In the Stoic sense, silence isn't just about quieting the external noise. It's about silencing the internal noise: anxiety, anger, envy, ego, and the endless stories we tell ourselves. Only when those voices grow quiet can our inner wisdom and calm finally speak. This video isn't a miracle, it's an invitation, honest and uncompromising. If you truly want peace, begin by removing the 13 things pulling you away from it. Don't skip a single one, because even letting go of just one brings you a step closer to the stillness you've been seeking your whole life. If you're ready, drop a comment. I accept the challenge. Let's begin. 1. Always wanting to be right. One of the quiet forces that disrupts our peace of mind is the desire to always be right. It sounds harmless. After all, who doesn't want to be right? But if we're not careful, the need to win every conversation can become a trap for the ego. When we prioritize being right over understanding, we unknowingly trade away harmony, connection, and even our own inner peace. Many arguments aren't truly about seeking truth. They're about feeding the ego. But do you really feel at ease after winning? Or do you feel drained, restless, and find yourself replaying the conversation in your head for hours afterward? Stoicism teaches us not to let other people's reactions control our inner world. As Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it." That quote reminds us that disagreement, anger, or misunderstanding from others isn't a threat unless we treat it like one. In a meeting, when someone stubbornly defends a view different from yours, you could argue to the end, or you could pause, zoom out, and say, "I understand your point. Shall we look at more data together?" That's not weakness. It's a conscious choice to value collaboration over confrontation. Before any important conversation, ask yourself, do I want to understand or do I want to win? And if the answer is to win, follow it with, will this victory actually bring me peace? Most of the time, silence or stepping back isn't weakness. It's the mark of someone with real self-control, the strongest person in the room. If you want peace, sometimes you have to let go of the sharp comeback, the urge to teach a lesson, or the need to prove you're right. Peace doesn't come from who wins. It comes from what you choose to hold on to, truth or calm. 2. Comparing yourself to others. Comparison is a silent form of violence we inflict on ourselves. When you constantly look at someone else's income, body, or success, you unintentionally put yourself in a race with no clear finish line. The problem is that in that race, no one truly wins. If you lose, you feel inadequate and insecure. If you win, the temporary high of superiority stalls your growth. Either way, you drift further from your own path of true development. Stoic philosophy emphasizes living in alignment with your own duties, not getting lost in the illusions of others. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions." That quote is a powerful reminder. Peace doesn't come from being better than others. It comes from living according to your own values. A practical way to break the comparison habit is to set clear personal goals. Keep a weekly progress journal and write down 3 things you've accomplished, no matter how small. Instead of spending 30 minutes scrolling through social media and feeling like you're not enough, Use that time to acknowledge yourself. You finished a tough presentation, you stayed calm in a stressful situation, or you read a full chapter of a book. Remember, comparison to others is endless and meaningless. Tracking your own journey is the only path to real growth and lasting peace. Comparison trap you may, and once you've stepped out of the comparison trap, you may notice another quiet force chipping away at your peace. The desire to control everything. In the next part, we'll explore why the need to have it all under control is exactly what keeps you feeling anxious and how to let go at the right moment. Let's continue. 3. The desire for absolute control. There's a quiet kind of exhaustion we rarely name. The fatigue that comes from trying to keep everything under control. The schedule must run down to the minute. People must behave the way we expect. Life must follow the script we've laid out. But life isn't a computer program we can code line by line. And when reality starts to drift from that script, someone cancels plans, a project falls apart, a loved one reacts differently than we hoped. We find ourselves tense, anxious, and angry. That's the cost of craving total control. Epictetus put it plainly: there are things within our power and things outside of it. We can't control what happens around us, but we can always control how we respond. This isn't just good advice. It's a way out for a mind trapped in the cycle of control. When you accept that you don't need to and can't control everything, you begin to free yourself from that invisible pressure. Picture yourself stuck in rush hour traffic. You can get frustrated, honk the horn, and yell, thinking you're doing something about it. But really, you're just reacting to something beyond your reach. Or imagine expecting your partner to always understand you, to say exactly what you want to hear. When they don't, you feel let down, disappointed, maybe even angry. But is that their fault? Or is it because you're trying to control someone else's emotions? It's natural to want things to go right, but the desire for total control is toxic. It keeps you on edge, always fearing the loss of something that was never yours to begin with. Peace doesn't come to those who master everything. It comes to those who know when to let go. Instead of fighting the river, learn to paddle with the current. That's not giving up. It's wisdom, and it's how you hold on to peace in a chaotic world. 4. Living in the past. If you keep replaying an old mistake or a wound from months or even years ago in your mind, stop. Not because the past doesn't matter, but because you don't live there anymore. We can't change what happened, but we can choose how we respond to it today. In Stoicism, the most important thing is to control what lies within our power and the past. However vivid or emotional is no longer within that control. Our imagination often spins around what we can't redo, around what could have been. But could have been doesn't change the present. It only eats away at the peace you deserve. Holding on to pain is like keeping a wound open. It never heals, and you can't run forward if you're still limping from the past. Instead, every time an old negative thought resurfaces, pause and ask, "What did I learn?" Then write it down. This simple act not only helps you regain control, but also shifts your energy from regret to growth. Say you once made a mistake at work. You were criticized, you failed, or missed an opportunity. The usual reaction is guilt, self-blame, and carrying that insecurity for weeks, even years. But what if you changed your perspective? What if you saw it as a wake-up call from God, a chance to return to humility, to listen, to grow in character? Sometimes grace doesn't arrive as a reward, but through a fall, and we only recognize it when we're willing to let go. Living in the past isn't loyalty to memory. It's locking yourself in an invisible prison. You can choose differently, learn the lesson, write a plan to improve, and move forward. Don't let your mind live in a time your body has already left. Peace doesn't come when you fix the past. It comes when you stop letting it control you. And if you've overcome a past hurt and learned something from it, share it in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs to escape their own darkness. 5. Being dependent on external recognition. If you want peace, stop living for others' approval and compliments. When your self-worth is tied to likes, applause, or praise, you're handing over control of your emotions to others. They compliment you and you're happy. They ignore you and you feel disappointed. Just like that, you become a pendulum swinging between the hope of being validated and the fear of being rejected. It's exhausting and it disconnects you from yourself. Stoicism teaches us that what we can control is our own actions and attitudes, not other people's reactions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." So why would you willingly give that power away in exchange for a few fleeting compliments? You weren't born to be a mirror reflecting society's expectations. You're here to live true to your own values. Instead of using outside opinions as your benchmark, come back to your own clear standards, like completing a smart goal you set for yourself. You don't need the world's applause to feel proud. You just need to know you gave it your all. When you finish a project, even if no one notices, you can still reward yourself. That's the kind of lasting recognition that comes from within, and that's what real freedom looks like. Peace doesn't come from fame or attention. It comes when you no longer need those things to feel worthy. When you step out of the comparison game and stop chasing approval, that's when you truly begin to live. You're no longer shaken by every glance or judgment. You become steady, grounded. Even without anyone's like, you're fine because you've chosen a life you believe in. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of passion or for someone else's gaze? If the answer is the latter, it's time to pause, be still, and come back to yourself. The peace you're looking for was never out there. It's always been within your reach, if you have the courage to validate yourself. 6. Fear of failure. If you truly want peace, you have to learn to face your fear of failure, not avoid it. Real peace doesn't come from everything being perfect. It comes from staying steady when everything is a mess. The fear of failure is an invisible prison. It makes you hesitate, back away from opportunities and tell yourself, I'm not ready or I'm not good enough. And then you stop. No one needs to beat you. You've already beaten yourself from the inside. Fear of failure quietly kills your potential every single day. You don't try new things. You don't step outside your comfort zone. You procrastinate, overanalyze, and wait until everything's perfect. But as Seneca once said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of what you're afraid of only exists in your head. It isn't real until you let it become the excuse that holds you back. So what should you do? Start with small weekly challenges. The goal isn't success. The goal is to face fear and learn. Choose something that makes you slightly nervous, like sending a job inquiry email, presenting an idea in front of a group, or starting a blog to share your personal views. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to get done. And most importantly, watch your mind while you're doing it. You're learning to control your emotions instead of letting them control you. That's the Stoic mindset. A real-life example, before inventing the light bulb, Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times. When asked if he felt discouraged, he smiled and said, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,000 ways that won't work." That mindset helped him stay calm, stay consistent, and eventually succeed. If he had let fear of failure control him, the world might look very different today. So what about you? What are you putting off because you're afraid to fail? Share it in the comments. Not just to get it off your chest, but to help someone else push through. Every share is a step away from fear and a step closer to peace. 7. Hoarding unnecessary material. We often think the more we own, the happier we'll be. But the truth is the opposite. The more we hold on to, the more we're tied down. The things you buy on a whim, the items you keep just in case. Over time, they don't just take up space in your home, they take up space in your mind. Behind the layer of dust on every forgotten item is a quiet kind of fatigue. The weight of managing clutter, the financial burden, and the emotional burden of not being able to let go. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." You are truly wealthy when you can step into a clean, uncluttered space and feel no urge to buy more. Every item is a choice, and the fewer unnecessary choices you have, the more time and energy you have to live in alignment with what truly matters. Hoarding material things isn't just a habit. It's often a reflection of fear. Fear of lack, fear of loss, fear of not having enough. But Stoics don't live by fear. They live by reason. And reason will tell you this: if you haven't used something in 6 months, you likely don't need it. Give it away, sell it, or let it go. Once a month, open your closet or your drawers and ask yourself, does this still serve me? When you clear out clothes you haven't worn in a year, you're not just emptying a closet. You're making room for relaxation, for clarity, for deeper breathing, and for peace to settle in. There's nothing wrong with material things, but once they go beyond a reasonable limit, they begin to control you. And peace will never come to someone who always feels a sense of lack. We've now made it halfway through the journey of the 13 things to let go of for inner peace, inspired by Stoic wisdom. Thank you for staying with me this far. If you're still here, it's a clear sign that you're genuinely serious about transforming yourself. Drop a comment saying, "I'm continuing to affirm that commitment," and keep watching until the end, because item 8 is where it gets even deeper. 8. Always being busy. In the evening, you've just finished eating and settled into your chair, but your hand still reaches for your phone. A notification pops up, then another. You check your work email, glance at tomorrow's schedule, reply to a few messages, and scroll through social media. Before you know it, it's almost midnight. Your mind is spinning, your heart is racing, and you call it a productive, busy day. But the truth is different. You're slowly losing yourself in the modern world. Being constantly busy has become a fake badge of honor, a sign of importance, productivity, or relentless effort. But from a Stoic perspective, that's an illusion. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. When your schedule is packed, there's no room left to hear yourself." That's fertile ground for stress, anxiety, and a deep disconnection from yourself and from those you love. The reality is that no one can keep spinning endlessly without paying a price. Burnout doesn't come from one hard day of work, but from weeks and months of forgetting to stop. You're always doing something, but not really getting anywhere. In Stoicism, peace doesn't come from productivity. It comes from awareness, from the ability to control your attention and your actions. Start small. Take 30 minutes each day to do nothing. No phone, no emails, no multitasking. Just sit in silence, read a page from a book, meditate lightly, or simply observe the space around you. Turn off all notifications during this time. At first, it might feel empty, but that stillness is exactly what your mind needs to recover and reconnect. Just like music needs pauses, life needs silence. You don't have to quit everything, but stop glorifying being busy. Peace comes when you have the courage to stop and step out of the whirlwind everyone else is caught in. Because sometimes doing nothing is exactly what you need to remember you're alive. 9. Constant complaining. Complaining is the fastest way to lose inner control. It doesn't solve the problem, it only prolongs the feeling of helplessness. Every time you complain about the weather, other people, or your circumstances, you're unconsciously feeding a victim mindset. A mindset that Stoicism has always warned against. Stoics don't ignore hardship, but they also don't let themselves be consumed by it. Complaining isn't an action, it's the delay of action through noise. The habit of complaining erodes your ability to find solutions. When you constantly blame the world, you lose any reason to change yourself. You become someone who's great at analyzing problems, but never takes a single step to move past them. Complaining is the result of negative thinking repeated over and over until it becomes your default lens. Try something different. Every time you feel like complaining, stop and write down 3 things you're grateful for, whether it's the warm sweater you're wearing, a friend who listened to you, or just your morning coffee. Instead of letting complaints drag you down, let gratitude lift you up. Gratitude is the direct counterweight to complaining. It's a small habit that can completely shift how you experience life. Take the example of Nick Vujicic, the man born without arms or legs, who never once voiced self-pity. Instead of complaining about his limits, Nick chose to inspire, to love, and to appreciate every small thing in life. He's not luckier than you. He just chose not to get trapped in the loop of complaint. If you truly want peace, shut up. Not to stay silent forever, but to quiet the internal noise so you can better hear what's worth listening to. Gratitude, calm, and responsibility for yourself. And if you think peace comes from controlling your external circumstances, think again. In the next section, we'll discuss something even more dangerous than complaining when your emotions are tied to someone else's mood. Emotional dependence is an invisible rope, strong enough to pull you away from yourself. How many times have you lost your peace just because someone else frowned? Don't look away. We'll get into it next. 10. Emotional dependence on others. The more you let your emotions be controlled by others, by their looks, words, or approval, the more you lose your inner peace. Emotional dependency doesn't just make you vulnerable. It also puts too much pressure on your relationships. When you expect someone to always understand, always love, and always accept you, you're handing over the key to your happiness to someone else. And when they're tired, indifferent, or simply don't respond the way you hoped, you fall hard. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing we can truly control is our inner world. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." So why put your emotions on a psychological lever controlled by someone else? Imagine you're texting someone you like and they don't reply right away. A wave of anxiety hits. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? But these thoughts don't come from reality. They come from relying on others' reactions to define your own worth. Instead of measuring yourself by how others treat you, start the journey of self-love. A simple but powerful tool is a self-love journal where you write down at least one positive thing about yourself each day. It could be that you got up early even though you were tired, the way you listened to a friend, or simply that you didn't give up today. Over time, you'll build the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. Someone who no longer needs external validation to feel worthy is truly free. Someone who can love without being dependent is truly strong. And someone who can stay at peace, even when rejected, ignored, or betrayed, is truly living the Stoic mindset. Ask yourself, do I need someone to love me in order to feel valuable? If the answer is yes, maybe it's time to return and rebuild the home within yourself. Have you ever experienced emotional dependency? What helped you overcome it? Share your story in the comments. Your words might be exactly what someone out there needs to hear. 11th, planning every detail. Have you ever made a perfect plan only to see it fall apart because of one thing beyond your control? Maybe it was a trip you'd been looking forward to for months with an itinerary mapped out down to the minute, but then a storm hit, your flight got delayed, the hotel shut down, and within a few hours, everything you hoped for vanished. What's left is frustration, disappointment, and a day that was supposed to be great. Now reduced to stress in Stoicism, peace doesn't come from everything going according to plan. It comes from the ability to adapt when things don't. Planning every detail might sound logical, but it's actually a subtle trap. You're not just trying to control time, you're trying to control the future, the environment, and even other people. You're setting yourself up for an either-or mindset. Either everything goes your way, or you suffer. Strength isn't about controlling everything, it's about adjusting when things change. You can plan, but don't chain yourself to the plan. Prepare for scenario A, but also be ready for B, maybe even C. Plans are meant to serve you, not the other way around. Instead of letting a ruined trip ruin your mood, you can pivot and turn that day into a chance to explore the city. Discover a coffee shop you never noticed, or find a park where you can sit and read. What seemed like a ruined afternoon suddenly feels unexpectedly peaceful. That's the Stoic mindset. Accept reality, adjust yourself, and find calm in the act of letting go. So, if you truly want peace, stop trying to control every detail. Train yourself to be flexible, proactive, and steady enough inside to know that no matter what happens, you can still choose calm. 12. Overanalyzing. Have you ever faced a small decision but spent hours weighing every possible scenario? Have you ever obsessed over how to reply to a message in a way that feels just right, or delayed sending an important email because you couldn't find the perfect words? If so, you're not alone, but you're also trading your peace of mind for the illusion of complete control. Thinking carefully before acting is important, but overthinking is a subtle trap of the mind. It causes you to procrastinate, stretching out decisions that could have been handled in 2 minutes. That's why the 2-minute rule matters. If a task or decision takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. No excuses, no overthinking, no guilt. Imagine you're at a bus station holding a ticket to the city of your dreams. But instead of boarding, you sit there turning the ticket over, analyzing every option. Should I go? Is this trip safe? What if I get there and I'm disappointed? While you hesitate, the bus leaves. You're left with regret and a lesson. Not making a decision is still a decision, and often the costliest one. Stoic philosophy doesn't teach us to act rashly, but it does emphasize clarity and agency. We weren't born to stay stuck in a maze of indecision. Every time you repeat a question you already know the answer to, you're giving anxiety control over your present. So if you want peace, stop analyzing everything like a war strategist. Just be honest with yourself. Make a decision once you have enough information and move forward. Sometimes peace comes from simplicity. Say yes, say no, and keep living. And if you think that analyzing long enough will give you control over everything, wait until the end. This is the part most people deny, but it's the root of all anxiety. The uncomfortable truth that's hard to swallow. 13. Denying impermanence. If you don't accept that everything changes, you'll live in constant fear. Any relationship, job, health, or joy you have is temporary. But instead of mentally preparing for that reality, you cling to it, and it's that clinging that causes your suffering. Because the world doesn't ask for your permission before it changes. Many people live as if things will always stay the same. They don't save money because they think their job will always be stable. They don't speak kindly because they assume their loved ones will always be there. But then one day, the company downsizes, a loved one suddenly passes, or the market shifts. In that moment, the truth of impermanence hits like a punch in the face, not because it came too fast, but because you refused to believe it would come at all. Denying impermanence makes you lose your ability to adapt when life changes. You will panic and react emotionally rather than rationally. A friend of mine who works in media experienced this when his company restructured. Many of his co-workers reacted with anger, fear, and doubt. He, on the other hand, stayed quiet for a few days, observed, and started learning AI-related skills. 3 months later, not only did he keep his job, but he was transferred to a new department that was more aligned with future trends. He told me, "At first I was scared too, but then I asked myself, instead of fearing this, what can I do?" That's the Stoic mindset. Choosing your response over reacting impulsively. Practicing mindfulness is one way to make peace with change. When you sit still and observe your emotions like clouds passing across the sky, you begin to realize that everything comes and goes. Emotions, jobs, joy, even sorrow. They don't define you, they just pass through, and you're still there observing, calm, and in control. If you truly want peace, stop pretending things will stay the same forever. Love without clinging, prepare without panicking. Live fully today, because tomorrow, whether you like it or not, will be different. That's not pessimism, that's the truth. And truth is the only thing that can set you free. Having made it through these 13 things to let go of for inner peace, you now have a roadmap to releasing the mental clutter and emotional burdens that hinder your growth. Stoicism doesn't teach you to avoid emotions. It teaches you to master your response to them. It doesn't teach indifference. It teaches steadiness. Peace doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from how you perceive and respond to it. So, of the 13 things, which one do you find hardest to let go of? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your experience might help someone else struggling with the same challenge.